welcome you all to the sixth convention, WAAAUB, North American Convention. We're very glad that the President made a special trip to attend this. Thank you, Vice President. Thank you all, distinguished alumni. Our first panel today is to talk about alumni entrepreneurs, and we have three distinguished alumni entrepreneurs among us. Very briefly, you have the program, not going to read their bios, you have the program in front of you. We have Christine Aswat-Sfair. She's, I can claim her, she's graduate from Faculty of Agriculture and Food Sciences, and her professor was the late, my great friend, Dr. Raja Tannouz, the father-in-law of our president. Tariq Dajjani, the son of Professor Nabil Dajjani, the famous Professor Nabil Dajjani. And Rami Rahal. I'm sorry, I don't know much about Rami because I'll let him introduce himself. I want to start by asking Christine a question. How come the Dunkin' Donuts coffee in Lebanon tastes much better than in the US? honestly, I like it. When I go to Lebanon, I drink Dunkin' Donuts. Here, I don't care for it. And I don't drink Starbucks anyhow. So, what's the secret? Is the different blend? Is it different?
No, it's the same blend. But we do it the right way. Sometimes in the US they
Can't hear you.
Okay. So the format is that we're going to have. We want to have it as sort of a lively discussion. But to start the session, we'll ask in alphabetical order each one of them. We'll start with Christine, and then Tariq, and then Rami. Each one will talk briefly about 10. We're going to have the whole session is an hour and a half, but we want to have it more interactive rather than just a formal session. So we will start with Christine.
Dunkin' Donuts to Lebanon.
Yes.
Why don't you introduce to the States? Can we be our ad?
This is what we're doing actually. What we're doing is that we took a part of the US to Lebanon, and now we're taking a part of Lebanon to the US. So we did it. When you come to New York, just visit and you see that we're doing, it's like a fast casual, but also with a coffee shop feel. We have a lot of people hanging out in the afternoon. We have Malabiye, we have Tamriye, we have a lot of nice stuff. So visit us and you see. Yes.
Very impressive. Do you advertise Lebanon in your stores?
We focus on Lebanese cuisine. So it's we're under the Mediterranean market, if you want, because this is now growing very fast. So we're competing with Greeks, with Egyptians, with a lot of people from the Mediterranean side. But what we learned from the focus group is that focusing on Lebanese cuisine is a plus. So we're not necessarily advertising Lebanon, but we're really focusing on the food.
So what's the catchword for this place?
It's wholesome Mediterranean cuisine. So it's under the Mediterranean, but we are Lebanese and we have pictures of Lebanon, and there's our story in the wall, on the wall. So people who come in know that we're from Lebanon.
I like the fact that you want to go to new markets. If you come to North Carolina, we have saturated, the place is saturated with good Lebanese eateries.
We're after Americans. We are not after Arab descent. They come, so they are a plus. But we open next to NYU, we open on Columbus Circle in the financial district where you don't have a very large, we didn't open in Brooklyn or places where you have a large Arab community, because we want to introduce the food to newcomers. And this is amazing when you see in the line people from all walks of life that talk about hummus and tabbouleh as if they were raised on it. For me, this is the biggest achievement.
Please go to Jamaica. When we visit, we can't find it with Lebanese.
We're going to go all over. We're going all over the world.
Christine,
Yes.
Are you promoting the cookbook Abundance?
We're going to start doing this as of Monday.
So your first store in the US, how long did it take you to become profitable?
It took us, the first store was a challenge because no one wanted to give us a space. Because when we were placing an offer, we were competing with Chipotle, Starbucks, Pret a Manger, and obviously that would take the space. So we knew when we opened the first one that it was not a prime location, it was a B- kind of location. So it took us maybe 10 months to break even. The second store broke even from day one. The third store have been open for a month now, and it's already above break even. So I think every time, store number 5, that I'm looking forward, that we're signing this Thursday, I think it's going to be the best model of them all, because now landlords are coming to us and offering us super prime locations, which was very difficult. We visited 127 locations before we were able to sign the first one. So every store is going to be easier.
Navigated the foreign market. Were there any Lebanese constituencies or Lebanese Chamber of Commerce or any Indian constituency that helped you navigate the market?
Not really. Not really. Not yet. I hope that the ED alumni can help networking. We're Tarek and I are part of the YPO, the Young President Organization, and this has been extremely helpful in getting us introduced to different people. So this is what we were discussing with Dr. Nasri this morning. Doing something similar for AUB graduate can be very helpful for new entrepreneurs or new graduates that are going for the
Can you use the microphone, please?
Yes.
So when you started your job, you started it with your personal capital, or you immediately bring investors?
It took, I immediately bring investor. It took us around 9 months to secure the capital. Some of it was family money, so this is why we have equity obviously in the business. We had bank loans and we had investors. So in all our businesses, we're used to have investors on board.
Christine, you're so
Chris.
inspiring.
Thank you.
So thank
Chris.
you for sharing your story.
We can't hear you, Ma.
I said that Christine is very inspiring, so thank you for sharing the story. Is it a franchise now? And do you plan on expanding in Canada?
New York is company owned, so it's the joint venture with the private bank. That we're opening corporate stores because I really wanted to know how to, in different neighborhoods. Let's say we have a store in university, next to a university, a store in a financial district, a store in malls, etc. So that when we franchise, we know how to adapt to the different settings. Everything outside of New York is going to be through franchising. We're signing our first franchise in California. We're opening next summer in LA, San Francisco, and San Diego with different franchises.
What about Canada?
Canada would be the next step. Again, we're going all over the world, but we're taking it step by step. We're going across the US first, and then...
The other question I have, how do you maintain control? Like, how long do you stay in one place? How do you...
Again, it's about having the proper team and having the proper systems. I don't run the day-to-day. I have people that are running the day-to-day. My role is to think 5 years in advance. So where are we heading? Where are we going? And having the right people in different markets do their job. And it was very tough to delegate. It's not something that you are born with, but with time you get better at it.
This is just a small comment.
Now you're doing okay.
Donuts make you smile, but they make your body cry, right? So you're introducing junk food to Lebanon.
Wait, it's the donut. Okay. Eating an apple is better, I give you that, but it's between 180 to 220 calories, so you have things that are much worse.
Lebanese lunch afterwards. Like.
Lebanese lunch or Lebanese breakfast will be even.
Just
even
another
less.
comment from my Lebanese mother-in-law who says Lebanese food is not good only, but it's good for you. So you're doing a big favor.
It is because first, for example, in our stores in the US, we don't have fryers. Everything is baked. We use fresh ingredients. So a lot of people are looking at us as a healthy, flavorful, healthy options. So we're very good with gyms. We're very good with health addicts, and there are a lot in the US. Thank you very much.
investor, what one or two sectors would you tell them to invest in Lebanon? Like in, from what you see in your experiences, what are two or three sectors that you think are, poised for change?
Good food.
Obviously.
Poised for change, I think.
Besides healthy donuts.
Yeah.
Excellent food.
I think, again, I'll say technology because I do think that's an important area. And I think that, and then I'll say design across the board. We have amazing talent and amazing problem solving and a lot of curiosity. So these sectors are good. I think that I would tell them move away from what could be perceived as traditional, because if you want big returns, real estate, small, the tourism and so on, they're fine, but they're not really where you could make big change. If you look at models that can impact globally, anything that's driven by design, driven by problem solving, driven by engineering, I think there's a lot that can be done there. And actually engineering is a very electrical, electronics, product, mechanical, all of these are very important sectors.
I'm not as familiar with the situation in Lebanon. How would you compare the infrastructure and the support and incubator space and accelerators to a place like Jordan? Is Lebanon falling behind, or?
If you're asking me 3 years ago, I'd tell you we're in a very bad shape. Today, and I'm not usually, I'm a big critic of government and everything, but I think that the central bank has done an amazing initiative, which is the 331 circular, that made available close to $500 million in VC funding. And ever since, we're really, really ahead, because now we have, probably our problem now is the excess of funds available for knowledge-based businesses. So today we're really moving fast. I think the only problem is that we've never driven, now we have a Ferrari. I don't know what could happen with that. But we're ahead when it comes to the available resources. And this is I have a bias, but we've always been ahead when it comes to knowledge and curiosity and technological innovation.
Are you the first to start like an incubator space?
Well, no, and I like to not think we're an incubator because we're more aggressive. We're not here to incubate, we're here to build companies together. So we're very aggressive equity holders, we're very involved in the campuses, but there are plenty. There are a lot of incubators now, there are a lot of funds. No, if I'm going to look at the line, I'm at the end of the line.
Do you have a tie with AUB, like an internship program for the business students, for the computer students, like a resource for you to build up the
I'd love to. We recruit a lot of AUB students. AUB is probably the first source. It's not always easy because we move, when you move at a pace that's kind of relatively fast and you operate in in a different model, building those ties are not that easy. Probably the fault comes on our side more. I've been trying to meet with Dr. Balbak before, I don't know how long.
President Khoury, you'd like to comment on that?
So yeah, I've been trying to set, you need to set things at different levels. We're always welcoming inflow. I keep on calling on my father to say, please send us CVs. But it's not just a question of CVs. We need to have the rapport. We need to have the day-to-day. We need to see it. And we're more than ready to welcome a lot of graduates. We have, for instance, one of the best facilities for product development, kind of a lab, all kinds of circuit board design, working on moving parts, on mechatronics. So we have facilities that are really interesting and good for students. We're working on products that deal anything from liquid chromatography to RFID to real advanced engineering, and students are probably the best people to help you, because once you're out and you get into the corporate world, if you're a mechanical engineer, start working on HVAC designs for buildings, you're not so good for us now. So we have to get the fresh blood, and we need to work on it.
Yeah, I come from the research triangle in North Carolina. That's what gave me the idea that, there is a
We
very
should-
active interaction between
we should,
schools
yeah.
and
President Khoury, would you like to comment on these?
I think they say, I loved your quote about smooth seas don't make good sailors, but this is the situation in Lebanon now, that things are not going to be smooth and we can't plan for the government services that you would expect in a normal country to rescue things. We also have an acute crisis in that we graduated a lot of people over the years who would go to work mostly in the Gulf. And that Gulf is essentially bankrupt these days. I mean, I'm using an unsophisticated but candid term. So I think there is the impression between those of us, at least at the two leading universities, the governor of the central bank and the entrepreneurial sector and the private sector, we have to create new economies. So there's a sense of urgency. We're trying not to waste a good crisis.
And will the AUB be involved in that?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, in fact, I think I'm texting back and forth with the president of Saint Joseph. We're going to try to get our senior leadership together to talk about entrepreneurism and sort of a rebirth of value for the humanities. Because honestly, I think that if Ahmad and we send you a student with a BA in history who's fantastic and creative, can write, that may be that person for something that you want, or Christine, or any of you, I can't speak for Ram because I haven't heard him speak yet. He's in a different sector, but these individuals may be more open-minded, may be more entrepreneurial than what you're getting in the U.S. There is a certain something in the ground there that people want to do and make major changes. I mean, our first year we had meetings with the Speaker of Parliament and others to say, create an expansion program that Nohad David has helped push, Teach for Lebanon, but with debt forgiveness. That would be innovative. New ways to develop the curriculum, use the students. But there's a slowness when you work with the government. So in Lebanon, you work around the government, which is what you're doing. Don't quote me on that.
No, we didn't hear.
So probably, one of the key ingredients here, I think that, you're using obviously talents, great minds back, in Lebanon and the Middle East, where, any awesome salary there obviously does not compare to somebody you hire here. And this idea has, many people have talked about why aren't we having many companies, based in Lebanon, that, probably develop software, develop many products that, are catered to the world. Many people have talked about it. I think, your company probably started there. So what do you think? What is the 1-2 things? And I think, the instability in the region can play into it, but cannot be the, factor that stops it completely. Why not? Why aren't we seeing those companies?
Well, I'll answer 2 parts. One, clarification. Our salaries in Lebanon are very high, and I did the math. And my argument always is that if you look at it from a cost of living perspective, our salaries are higher than the U.S. In the NY group, the average salary is what is equivalent to around $4,000 a month. That's around $50,000 a year. If you consider that we're almost tax-free, that's around $100,000 a year. That's not a salary that is a low salary. It's a very high salary. So that is not an advantage. We're not an outsourcing when it comes to cost. So when I did Wavemark work, we were not competing on cost. We were competing on ability. We're competing on edge, or niche prototyping. We're not going to build your large-scale manufacturing, but we're going to give you a very quick turnaround on a prototype. That's the first part of the question. The second part being, why don't we outsource? We don't invest in anything that is targeted at the region. But we'd love to try it in the region. I'm very happy if it works in the region. But we're not in the business of building companies for local or geographical spread. If the model cannot scale, my business model doesn't work, because then you cannot have exit. Dr. Khouri's point, the Gulf is not really in the best state to give you exits. At best they can consume, but they will not give you the exit. If you don't have a model that can scale globally, you cannot exit, and therefore the investment is not worthwhile. So, to your point, economics are driving it now and driving it towards what you're talking about. The only thing is that we cannot compete on cost. We have to compete on innovation, on intellectual property, on patenting, and so on.
Time for a couple more questions. Yes.
I listen to you and I see lots of resilience stuff. Obviously, resilience is synonymous with the Dajani name anyways. What kept you going? I mean, there were many steps that you actually thought you failed or didn't work out and whatever, you still persevered. I mean, what's in the character? I mean, obviously your story and Christine's are both of courage and thinking outside the box, taking that extra, whatever nobody thinks about. So what kept you going? Why?
Well, it's, again, one, there is no other option because that's where you're on a road, you're driving and you're enjoying it. So one, it's driven by passion, and meaning you're driving, you're learning as you go. Every single thing is kind of a new thing. So you're absorbing, you're getting exposed to new things. We're at a time where we're lucky because the world is kind of taking a new shape and we can look at it. So if you're kind of participating in that world, and that alone is a major motivator. And then when you jump, I never did skydiving, but I would assume if I jump, I have no other option but to try to get the parachute out. So when you jump in entrepreneurship, you're driven by that momentum, and you just have to navigate and make the best out of it. So I guess that's it. It's subconscious.
Okay. An answer to your question and following what the president mentioned, would you allow me?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Tyre is a young man not only of ideas and words, but also of action, as you can see. And actually, he established 2 funds at the university and tied those funds with exactly what you're saying, which is trying to provide opportunities for students who are benefiting from those funds for internship and for later for work. So, thank you, Tyre.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's at least.
That was addressed. That was addressed. Okay. Any more questions? Well, with perfect timing.
Thank you.
We didn't change anything. I just think we spoke to about the first time around we didn't understand. Sometimes when you, and I think that's a blessing. If you know too much, you'll never take the risk. That's a good thing. We didn't know, so we said, yeah, it's going to be easy. And then we got into it, and then we've noticed how hard it was going to be. What we've decided to do is initially we thought that if we go out and talk to people that we know, they'll give us money, but it didn't happen. So what we did the second time was we refined our pitch a bit, and then we went to entrepreneurs that have built companies. And usually entrepreneurs are, like, if someone invested money in you, you're a lot more prone to go invest money in other people. I think that's kind of a mindset. So entrepreneurs are very active investors in general, and they invest in people, but they always invest in early stage companies. So we went to entrepreneurs and said, look, you invest in early stage companies, we're a growth stage fund. Invest money with us, our risk return profile is a lot more stable. You can still do your early stage stuff, but you don't have access. Getting access to some of the later stage deals is a lot more difficult. So that's what we changed. This allowed us to get the first 3.5 million, and then we hustled a bit to get 5, and then just begged, I guess, 20,000, 50,000, it doesn't matter. And then we started investing directly. And then once we had 3 companies, because we had already lined up deals, once we had 3 companies, we had like some money, we had 3 companies, we had a little bit more momentum. So it was easier to go back and talk to the same people and say, look, we've met 6 months ago, we didn't have anything. Now, look, we have 3 investments, We have these guys that are working with us as well, and looks that we're going to invest in similar companies. So it was more palpable, I think, and that's how we did it.
Yes. Okay. Well. Yes, Raja. What kind of companies did you invest in? Are you on the board of some of these companies?
Yes,
Are you
I'm on the board.
taking active interest in running them? Or?
Yes, of course. So I'm on the board of several companies here in the U.S. All sizes, I assume, of companies, all in the. For my work, what relates to the fund, it's only software companies. So Blue Cloud only invests in software companies, cloud-based software companies. The fund in Beirut is going to be actually very different. It's going to work with international U.S. companies to help them expand their operations into the Middle East. So my thought process was, before we start building the next Facebook, we have to know what working at the Facebook means, and you need to learn about product, you need to learn about structure, it's work ethics, technology, the newest tools. I think we're still really behind. And the number one priority is to train the workforce. We have very smart kids, but they're not trained well. And then if you start working in Lebanon, or if you branch out on your own, you're not going to learn the right way of doing things. So number one priority is to get some of these companies, large companies that are interested in expanding into the Middle East, rather than doing it in Dubai. Give them incentive to come to Lebanon, hire around 50 people. We have a whole structure that we've put in place around the circular because they limit you a bit. So we've put a structure around it to really train this new ecosystem. And once they're trained, then they can go start their own businesses. And these businesses are going to be consumer-based businesses because software, someone talked about software in the Middle East. Software is, I think it's going to be very tough to build software because you really need, Israel is doing it, but they only build the core technology there, and then sales and marketing are in the US, so it's going to be tough.
Sorry, I just want to follow up, and this is more for maybe Dr. When I listen to the entrepreneurs, what I'm seeing in Lebanon is missing are things in pharmaceutical development and biotech, and I'm just wondering, first of all, if AUB as a technology transfer office, that facilitates all these activities, getting intellectual property from AUB to be invested in companies like that. But I really feel bad, since it's my area, drug development, things. I don't see anything at all coming from the Middle East early on. And we have a great medical school, medical center, and I'm sure very talented doctors and stuff. And it's much harder to develop in that area than software. You're saying it's hard to do software, but things like pharmaceutical industry takes a much longer time to develop and to exit and to.
I think we don't have yet the labs for this. I know that Jordan is good in the drug industry. They have some manufacturing but not not innovative drug. They do the generic drugs. And I think our mindset should be initially step one is to try to be as independent as possible, and by creating high value jobs. Today the economy does not create high value jobs. Anyone who works there, you feel that a lot of people are very serious, but unless you're on your own, if you work as part of a company, it's very tough to grow. It's tough to the environment is tough. I think the number one priority is to try to attract international businesses to set up shop there and start recruiting locally. We have very good resources, and I actually think that to attract people, you have to pay up, and you have to pay salaries that are. If you're not comparable to salaries that are here or in Dubai, why would someone work for you if you're going to pay him half of the salary he's going to be paid in Dubai? Although I agree, costs of living are lower because you don't have an apartment, but people don't think about it this way. Like if a new MBA graduate wants a job, he's going to go and look for it other than Lebanon. And it's going to be very tough for him to come and accept the idea that he's going to work for two young entrepreneurs, Lebanese guys that just started the company. Why would I do that? So I think that's the step one, and then eventually we can start building companies on our own and building, getting the talent to build companies, because that's what's missing.
If I'm an entrepreneur and I want to invest,
Yes.
I will look for political stability, economic stability,
Yes.
Cost of the work that will be done.
Yes.
Why should I go to Lebanon, Jordan, while I can go to India? I'm now involved with many Indian companies now,
Yes.
where you can hire a software engineer for $300 a month.
Yes.
So why should I go to Lebanon or Jordan or Dubai?
That's a great question. So India is like the back office. You can think of India. India initially started 20 years ago as the back office of the world. So anyone who wanted to, like, cheap resources, especially when the workflow was very tough, you go to India. There's a book called by George Friedman. It's The World is Flat, and he talks about
Thomas Friedman.
Thomas Friedman. George Friedman is like the next 100. Anyway, so he speaks, and you can read about like how India was built. Some of our companies, one of our companies, Dhruva, has 200, like all their development is done in India, and they're like one of the most innovative companies in their space. But they're based in San Francisco. If you want to grow into the Middle Eastern market, what you need is not only software development. You need retrofitting the product. You need sales and marketing. You need creative talent. The companies that we're bringing in are like a child education application. So K-12. This requires people that did studio and design. We have very good designers there. We have very good marketers. You need to how to build a channel to acquire customers. You need to retrofit the product. You need translation. They're using it. It's an app that teaches kids different languages. It's like the Rosetta Stone for kids. It has huge potential there for people that want to learn English or vice versa, other languages. So I won't look at it only as a pure tech play. That's number one. Second is, India actually is not known for their quality. So yes, you can get things done in India, but you can look at Ukraine. Ukraine now is a much better option for a lot of companies, or Poland. So I wouldn't be worried about going to India or going to Ukraine. Like, if you want to get into the Middle East, you need people that understand the local culture, and you need like an office that is working together. In terms of stability, yes, I thought initially that before we get going into this, I spent a lot of time talking to people. And frankly, if you want to work into the Middle East and you want to sell into the Middle East, you have to have something there. So yes, the question becomes not whether, if you don't want to do it, then we don't have business with you. But if you want to get into the Middle East, the question is not, is it stable or not? The question is, do I go to Dubai or do I go to Lebanon? And our job is or Jordan. Our job is to give them enough incentive to come to Lebanon. And then again, we're not going to tell them, not everyone knows about, like, when someone is in Lebanon, they understand how, I didn't know anything. When I went there, it was like a big shock for me to actually start working with people there. Because I wasn't used to it. But CEOs also don't know that. And actually, one of our companies now that does, it's like a full integrated e-commerce from web store to like fulfillment and order management, so the whole package, like an Amazon-like new technology, is working. I introduced them to like a party in Lebanon, and they're working with these guys to develop, to kind of fix their software to fit the distribution business. So rather than having middlemen leverage the post to distribute goods and collect money from the bodega stores, it becomes like they have 14,000 SKUs, and it becomes very difficult for them. So there are companies that are winning. There's another company called Payment Partners who does dresses, like ready sizable dresses, and they're interested in growing into the Middle East. The Middle East has the biggest spend per capita on luxury and on fashion. Not the biggest in the world, it's the 5th biggest market, but in terms of spend. And they want to get into the Middle East. And if we're going to help them do it, they'd rather come with us and do it through Beirut. So I think it's going to be difficult for us initially to convince companies to do it. We've already convinced a couple that are going to come. and then we have to prove out the model. And then I think not only doing this, we're going to have to work with the government and with other entities not to stop us. As long as they don't let us, let us buy, I think we'll be fine. The problem is if they're going to start trying to, hinder this growth or create problems for us.
Yes.
This question is for the three of you. Have you faced any problem with work ethics with people in Lebanon? And I think this is like a weak point in the Lebanese workforce.
Personally, I haven't, so far, I haven't been working too much. It's not like I've worked for 10 years and with people there. So my sample universe point is very small. But I haven't had any issue. The only difference is the problem, and I think that's a good thing for Lebanese. And I always tell that to my partner. I'm like, look, whenever we're setting something, I always think, how can someone screw us over 50 different ways? So you backtrack. Exactly. And then people here don't think this way. And then you backtrack and protect yourself in so many different ways. And I think that's why we're successful here as entrepreneurs, because we always anticipate how can things go wrong? Where is it going to go wrong? And here, when you work with people, it's like handshake agreements and you trust. There, I wouldn't do it, but I don't think people are gonna. You have to protect yourself, but I don't think that's gonna be an issue.
And Tarek mentioned it a few times. Well, yeah, there are issues with. I think the problem is there's complacence, there is impatience, there is the grass is greener on the other side, taken to the extreme, meaning you feel that everything else is better, therefore here, if you have a notch of talent, then you're able to really put major terms in. So curiosity, it takes a toll here. I think it's something that will get solved once more and more is happening. So I'm happy to hear what Rami is doing and so on. So the more there is, the more this will get sorted out.
I would like to add one more thing. The main difference we felt between the main difference we felt between working in the Middle East or in Lebanon and working in the US is the scale, the market size. In Lebanon, let's say if I take the restaurant business, you have 15,000 restaurants or 15,000 customers. While in the US, the market is so much larger that you feel that everyone is helping. Like we were surprised when we opened our first stores, the restaurants in the block came to help while we are coming to compete, but they don't look at us as competition. They look at us as, oh, the more we have restaurants here, the more people are going to come. This is great. While in Lebanon, if I open a restaurant next to someone, they're going to try to kill us overnight in different ways. So I think the main difference is the market size, the market potential. On your question on why in Lebanon, nowadays, I don't think there's one market that is not going through a crisis. So the fact that we are so good at dealing with crisis has been a major advantage. Like Saudis freaked out when they had this oil price going down, and for us it was, okay, we can find a solution, don't worry about it, there's a solution for everything. And for them, this was something new. So when dealing, nowadays, there are so many markets that are dealing with crisis that having our experience in ongoing crisis has proven to be a great plus and not a minus.
Make a quick comment. I think it's underrated, but you each touched on it. It's your undergraduate education is very important for me. And this is why we're really coming to a confrontation with the Minister of Higher Education on his plan to legislate more and more for-profit universities. Not because in principle we're opposed to for-profit education. Actually, I'm completely opposed to for-profit education because I think it devalues what you get out of it. And the equation is a very, when you look at its base, that's the basis, it's a very dehumanized equation. Basically saying, you pay X, I get Y, you get Z. But Z is often inadequate because all the motivations are financial. So One of the advantages in Lebanon is for a country with a fairly small population, you had at least 2 universities that gave a high-quality education comparable to American or French or European for a long time, and we take 20,000 students. Now, there are another 5 or 6 universities that are at least good, okay? So 2 what I would honestly and tactlessly call superior universities, between 5 and 7 good universities. Still, per capita, that's not bad. The issue with work ethic is very different. I built we're going to call it a failed business. I took the oncology program at Emory, which was supposed to be the graveyard of oncologists. We built it from a business, and just a business case that made maybe $3-4 million a year and consumed that in costs to one that graded, by the time I left, a net revenue of about $70 million. And we never cared where we recruited from. Of course, the university took that margin, as academic institutions often do, and used it to plug on other holes, which is why eventually it became boring for me. One of the key mistakes in Lebanon, which I think this will help correct, is when you do well, you don't reinvest, you take it out of the market. I think there is an awareness, since Lebanon's manufacturing industry was basically, starting in the 70s, Lebanon divested from manufacturing. If you went outside of Burj Hamoud, in a very small part of the Qatar, no one made anything. It was almost a shame to make something. The people worked in sectors that didn't involve labor. So that's actually a crisis that's an opportunity. You can manufacture things, and you're generating the skill set. The question is, do we need more vocational schools like they do in Switzerland to add to the expertise of the university? I don't know that, but I think you have the raw materials that you will overcome any cultural ethical issues. I mean, you're right, there's a lot of expertise. There is no group of people in the world that give you more advice on something you spent years doing than in Lebanon. I'm always impressed that people were even trying to teach me how to treat lung cancer. But you can look at it 2 ways. I look at it as people are genuinely interested and curious, and you can recruit them to invest their time in something, as long as you treat them as junior partners of some sort, as opposed to employees. My impression is what's very different in Lebanon and, let's say, among the Lebanese Palestinians and Syrians in their schools compared to some of the other Arab countries is ultimately their goal in life is not to be an employee, just like all of your goals. Their goal is to be a partner or investor or an owner. And if you can flip that to your advantage, you have a winner.
Yes, Dr.
I have a question that's addressed to you and to Dr. Khoury, and it was addressed a little bit, but I want you, if you specifically talk about that. You talked about employment opportunities when the students graduate. And I want to ask, what is it that you do and what does the university do? I compare to when I went to school 50 years ago, nobody ever talked to me about career options, learning opportunities. And I would like to ask you, what opportunities do you give to the students to discover things they might get interested in, or they are interested in, to kind of show themselves? And what does the university give them options other than going and doing something during their vacation, but like they do in the States, and certainly here in the medical field, they go and do and spend some serious time in the summer, a serious work. And if you can address during the studies, not after they graduate.
I'll just answer. This is an important question. I think engineering had an amazing woman. I still remember her name, Nadia Mkharij. I don't know if she's still there. She is just incredible at placing students, and she takes it to heart. She placed every single one of us in engineering and internships, and that was very important. She helped me get into like the University of Wisconsin for some research. It didn't really work out. I didn't get my visa at that time. But at least on the engineering side, they're active. In terms of increasing career opportunities, unfortunately, Lebanon has always been focused on, I think, the Gulf region. And then so all the mindsets of everyone was like, what are the jobs available, especially for engineers, and how can I get into them? And there wasn't this need to think about something else. I think now, with what's happening, I'm not sure, and that would be an interesting question to see, like, how do you actually educate the students to understand that as an engineer, there are other things that you can do than work in oil and gas, construction, consulting, or maybe wealth management. These are the 4 careers. You can ask anyone, they're going to say this. And so it would be interesting to see like how their horizon expanded. I think a lot of it has to do with themselves doing research, but it'll be interesting for a university to give them these choices.
So I'll give you a 30-second answer or less. Where you can go first. We recognized this challenge before I got there. So we're investing in 3 major areas from the perspective of students, which is career counseling, mental health, and you guys, the Entrepreneur Network and the Alumni Network, because we believe you can help our students, our graduates get jobs. I think that's probably the most balanced way to do it. So we're actually using budget to pay for more mental health, because this is a problem across universities, and for more career counseling. Nadia is leaving because she got a job in the US, but the idea is we don't have enough redundancy. You know, one person goes down, then everyone is worried. So we're creating what I like to say necessary redundancy in our career services, and we have 140 plus people each year, 140 companies that come to our job fair. We're trying to double that over the next 5 years.
3 things I would like to add. First, when we interview, really AUB students stand out, especially in managerial, marketing, business. This is where we're after AUB student. Like someone that just graduated from AUB is as good as someone that has 5 to 10 years experience coming from another university. So it really makes a huge difference. So we work with the AUB placement officers, etc. whenever we need someone of this caliber. 2 more things. We're both from Jamhour, and Jamhour has a very strong alumni network. And we receive emails all the time about like a company that is looking for a job or people that just graduated from universities. And I think we can use the AUB alumni network much better. I think Jamhour is doing a great job, YPO are doing great jobs for this, and this is something that we can work on. And third is mentoring. I spend 15 to 20% of my time mentoring. I absolutely love it. I think this is something that I do for myself as much as for others, whether it's young entrepreneurs, helping them set their business goals, but also a lot of students. And it started with the sons and daughters of my friends, so just send me your children whenever you want, and trying to work on some sessions with them just for them to figure out what they want has been very interesting as well.
We're sort of running short on time. It has been a very lively discussion. I wish we have to move to the other, but there is one question I think we should ask Christine about. Did you face any gender problems in you starting an entrepreneur?
I love this question. No. For me, being a woman has been a huge advantage and never a disadvantage, especially in the Middle East. And negotiating with people that are not used to negotiate with women is a lot of fun. And I absolutely love it. Even in the US, we got a lot of press because we are crazy women from the Middle East that are here to take the US by storm. So until now, and this is what I tell to my daughters, being a woman is a great plus in today's world. So let's take huge advantage of it.
We have 5 minutes before the next session. So the other question, are entrepreneurs born or made?
I don't think it's always a combination. They're made by their choices, but anyone, if they embark on that journey, it builds resilience and it builds character and it actually makes you an entrepreneur. I don't think there's such a thing as you're born as an entrepreneur. Of course, maybe you're born with a bit more stubbornness, with a bit more curiosity, but I think it's something that becomes part of you as you grow up, as you learn. I don't think when I was a kid, I thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I don't have a story when I tried to start a business when I was 10 or 12, but it just happens. Can I just, one thing I want to cover to Dr. Khoury on the career thing. I think one thing I just want us to consider is that we kind of look at careers as a linear thing, and in education, my only problem I find that it's an endpoint choice. So we either counsel before they join a program or just before where to place them. And the biggest opportunity is in figuring out ongoing placement throughout the course. So if someone is studying engineering, it's the first, the second, the third year of their studies where that contact sport with the business world matters more than just a month before they graduate, a career fair. And just to the career fair thing, although it's an important thing, but honestly, it's just not the right place to get the right mix. I think this is something that has to be an ongoing engagement with the partners. And to this point, universities are engaging more with kind of the largest institutions who happen in the region to be more the traditional form, engineering, big construction company, and so on. There has to be a thought on both sides on how to kind of do an ongoing engagement throughout the time of an engineer. And for us, when someone joins as a fresh graduate, I'd rather hire a fresh graduate than someone who's been in the business, especially out in the Middle East, because they're more of a sponge. They can absorb more, and they can change 3 times within the job. They can change careers, but we need to also figure out a model of being responsive and looking at their needs and their interests.
Another question: how important is the role of mentors in your role as you start? I'll ask the 3 of you this question.
I had mentors, I think, every step of the way. I think started really at Columbia and here in the U.S. Obviously, my parents have been amazing. I was blessed with an amazing childhood, really good friends. If you want to grow as a person, you need people that challenge you and push you and push you into the right direction, and then allow you to think differently and believe in you. Like a mentor has 2 roles, I think. First role is to believe in you, to give you kind of this internal belief that you can do it. And the second role is to push you to think beyond, what you're thinking in today. And you can't have the same mentor all over. You have to find new mentors throughout your career. They can give you so much, and then that's it. They've learned a few things, and that's it. So it was very important, at least to me, having a mentor at Columbia, having a mentor when I just started my career, figuring out things, having a mentor at my job, and now having, like when I started my company, and having a mentor currently. And it's not easy to get mentors. Like it becomes more and more difficult. Like how can you approach random people and get them to become your mentors?
Yes, Dr. Barbara.
Yes, I just want to answer several questions at once. Regarding the official internship, not only engineering is a great program, but also it's part of the business curriculum. Now internship is a must. They have to do 1 summer of internship after they finish their junior year, and this is graded. There's a grade that they take, and there's a faculty member who supervises them. All the other professional schools have Faculty of Agriculture and Food Sciences as an internship program, particularly nutrition. Nursing has an internship program. So this is now part of the curriculum for the reasons that you've mentioned and that were mentioned. Also, regarding the Career Services Center, the President mentioned that this is a strategic initiative that we're taking, and all the faculties are involved. It's under the provost, so this has a prime importance to us. And again, the approach is not, as Tariq mentioned, which is that the job fair is important, but it's not the end of the day. This is a commencement of a long journey. So we have to make sure that we maintain connections and relationships. The issue of the mentorship program, this is part of the initiative that the alumni office and have been working with the alumni organization with WAAAUB towards investing in. We started a mentorship initiative few years ago, I think a year and a half ago, and we're having certain informal round sessions whereby we bring mentors from different backgrounds and have an open session with students. They come in and they interact with them. So, but there's a lot to do, and with the help of all of you here and alumni all over the world, I think we can do much more.
Well, thank you. Yes, President.
So I just want to say, this, first of all, it was a wonderful session. I would probably have to say it anyway, but I actually mean it. Because not only entrepreneurs, but you brought up a very important point, something that I discovered when I was older. At the end of the day, it's all about making sure that you fill the students' toolkit so they'll be successful. Some of that toolkit is educational, some of that is experiential, but it comes in strange ways, and this is what we're looking at. For me, I had no choice in my late 20s. I did not want to burden my parents with the cost of my medical education, so as I took more and more loans, we had a president, I'm sorry for all Reagan fans, who in my view was the worst in American history, although someone who could be worse than him could be elected. From the perspective of education, so there used to be, you could defer your loans, and Reagan made that almost impossible. So I had to work every 4th to 5th night in emergency room. It was exhausting. On top of my day job, I was working on average 110 hours a week. But it gave me a very good skill. It made me very proficient in medicine, so that when I started my career as a faculty member, instructor, I was already, by the first year, the best physician in solid tumor oncology, that I could handle odd emergencies. So that was an odd skill that came to me. I relate to some of the things that all three of you said. The failures that teach you things, the successes that teach you things, exiting quickly, closing companies, opening companies. We want to change AUB so that we don't lose any of the core education, but that we put more things in the tool shed of our students. Resilience, and as you very nicely answered, thought entrepreneurs are both born and made, but students are fragile. That's why we really are focusing on this investment in mental health. Mental health issues are an epidemic on U.S. Campuses, and we believe they are an epidemic at AUB and in the other universities. We had 3, fortunately, unsuccessful suicide attempts this year that we prevented because we're putting in more vigilance, more surveillance. So, yes, we don't want to break the students, but we do want to break some of these systems by adding to the tool sheds of the schools. But that's where the alumni role is vital. From our data that Imad and I and our leadership team have looked at, we have among the most successful alumni of any university not named Stanford. Okay? We can compete with the best of the armies, but we are disconnected. Unlike, let's say, I don't know if Dr. WAAAUB is here, the University of Michigan is the best in the world, along with Stanford, at tapping into Switzerland. That's why it's very important that we not have just an annual event, but that we keep in constant touch with you, and we're open to ways to do that.
Thank you. I hate to stop this very lively discussion. I'm so glad Christine, Tariq, Rami, we finally made it.